Today on Hands On Photography, I am back looking at my video editor of choice. Well, not of choice, just a couple video editors. And we're going to continue our little bit of training in the world of video editing and making sure your videos can look really dadgum good with just a few little simple tweaks, little simple effects. Y'all stay tuned.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Hands On Photography is brought to you by Nareva. Traditional audio conferencing systems can entail lots of components. Installation can take days, and you might not get the mic coverage you need. That's complex, expensive. But Nareva audio is easy to install and manage. No technician is required. And you get true full room coverage. That's easy economical. Learn more at nareva.com. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Pruitt. This is Hands On Photography here on TWiT TV. Hope y'all are doing well. I'm unbelievable as always. In this week's episode, we're going to go back into our video editing module because there's a lot to video editing. You know, I want to try to make this as simple as possible, but I want to try to hit all of the fundamental bases of the concept of creating and editing video. But before we get into that, let me say welcome to all of the first-time listeners and viewers of the show. Welcome to you. Thank you for popping in. Go ahead and hit subscribe in whatever podcast app you're enjoying this on, particularly if it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google's or Pocket Cast. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the little rating option that's built in to those particular services. Not all of them have the rating options, but if they do, go ahead and rate it. Give me a nice 5-star rating. I'm not going to be upset if you do so. And also be sure to leave me a comment on there to let everybody else know what you think of the show. If you're having some issues just finding the subscription options to our show, just head on over to the website, twit.tv/hop. That's twit.tv/HOP for Hands On Photography. And you'll see all of the previous episodes there and all of our subscription options and show notes and all that good stuff. So go ahead and check that out. Thank you for the support. So now let's go ahead and get started with this week's episode. Okay. So again, we're going to continue on our practice of video editing. You know, I've been using Premiere Pro. I've been using Davinci Resolve. I've been using Vegas Pro. Because those are options that are available to me. I don't have Final Cut, but again, you can still sort of take into effect the fundamentals regardless of what app you're using. Today, I'm going to be using Premiere Pro as well as using Davinci Resolve. And today's topic, as far as video editing, is going to deal with just adding a couple little minor effects to your video sequence, little minor effects and a simple little title graphic onto your video. Something that's just going to give it a little bit more polish as you're trying to tell your story. I was recently talking to one of my friends, Mr. Mike Olson. I appreciate you, brother. I thank you for watching the show. And he brought up a good point, you know, that I want to try to reiterate when it comes to doing your videos. It's about, you know, yeah, you got to do your editing and make sure you got your color balance and corrected and all of that good stuff. But none of that stuff means a hill of beans if there's no real story to it. So really make sure when you're composing your video, you try to create a story with it, you know, have some type of arc with it. All right. So here inside of Premiere Pro, you'll see that I have a bunch of different little clips there. And over here on this left-hand side of the screen, all of these are video files. I mean, that's a lot of video files. And some of it is stuff that I did retakes of. So as you're thinking about your video that you want to do, understand that it's not going to be just one huge video file getting started. It's going to be several different takes, and it depends upon the type of story that you're trying to tell. So as we look at my timeline here, let's just start back here at the beginning of the timeline. Well, I have to delete these. I just got to endpoint right here. So if I started here, basically my model or my son, he's coming out of the building, out of the house there. So you follow him down, follow him down, follow him down. And then you notice on the timeline that the clip changes a different color because this is a separate clip, not the same clip. And by doing that, I get a whole different angle, a whole different perspective. You know, I'm even lower down on the ground with the camera versus shooting, you know, up at eye length back here when, you know, and just sort of lowering the camera and so forth. So it's a lot of thought process when it comes to, you know, setting up your particular video composition. So go out and sit down and plan it out. If you got to write it out and come up with a little shot list, do that. Then go out and record those shots. And it doesn't matter what kind of camera you're using. Use your dadgum iPhone. They're good at shooting video. They really are. Or just use whatever camera you have and just create those shots. Once you got those created, dump them onto your computer, bring them into your video editor and start creating. Okay. Now let's get back to this here timeline and take a look at just something simple that we can do to help make this just a touch better, you know, just by sprucing it up a little bit. So if I play this through, and I've taken all the audio out of it because it's not necessary. And again, I'm inside of Premiere Pro. If I play this through, this is just him walking out the door, walking down to the streets here and so on and so forth. And he gets on the skateboard and he's gone. And then there's this blank spot. And then there's these other shots here. And if you remember from a previous episode, this is the shot where I used to make different layers and added in a little sound effect there just so we could show how you can add sound in addition to whatever ambient sound you already had recorded. So how can we blend that together? So let's see. I can grab all of these little clips and just sort of slide it over in the timeline like so. And if I hit play, it goes through and then it just jumps into that. And for some people that may be okay, but I gotta tell you, not my thing. I think there needs to be some sort of transition there, whether it be another shot setting up, going into this whole jump, or just some type of transition effect that's going to say, hey, I'm going into something totally different. It could be as simple as a dissolve or a fade that takes from shot 1 into shot 2 and just sort of blends it together seamlessly and just sort of tricks the viewer. Okay, so let's take a look at that. We'll add just a simple fade effect or a cross dissolve to this and see if we can make this look a little bit better. So I'm going to take this footage here and I'll just drag it down to the same track here like that. And now I have them next to each other. Okay. And then I just go to my effects tab here inside of Premiere Pro. Yours may be over here on the left hand side. Mine is up here on the right because that's where I stuck it. And then you can just search for dissolve. How do you spell dissolve? Is that how you spell dissolve? I'm struggling today. There we go. All right, so I got a bunch of effects in here that mention dissolve. And then if I scroll down, I see this one here. This just says cross dissolve. You take these effects like so, and you just grab it, drag, and drop onto your footage right here. Okay, and that's done there. That little error says it's not enough frames. That's because it's a short clip, but we're good. I promise you. All right, so now what happens if you play this through, it'll just sort of blend into the next shot, okay, instead of that jarring cut going on right there. So that's so much better. If I hit play, so much better. Okay, now granted, this has not been rendered out, so it's not totally smooth. If you look at this upper line here, it's yellow. So that means, hey, my GPU and processor is still working a little bit hard. This needs to be rendered out to be a smoother playback. I could just go up here to the sequence and just hit render in and out. And it'll power through like that and make it to where this bar is green. So Mr. Victor is just going to fast forward through and we'll pop right back to this screen. Okay, so now we're back and we got the green bar at the top, and this thing just plays through so much more smoothly. And as we mentioned before, we get to this shot where it's going to be a transition, and it just blends right on in, and it looks so much better. Now, what else can we do to this? So if you're watching our shows, whether it's my show or any of the other shows on the TWiT network, every now and then you see us on the screen and we just look like this here. It's just our faces, our mic, so on and so forth. And then something to pop up across the bottom of the screen. Those are called lower thirds. And that's just a simple little graphic just to spruce up, you know, what's going on the screen there. And you can put anything down there in a lower third. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something as nice and fancy as what Mr. Victor has up on the screen right now with this beautiful color bar, and it's got the name of the show and my name and so on and so forth. You can just simply just put text there, something that just, maybe it's like an image credit or a director credit or something like that. Something that just gives just a little bit more polish to the screen. So that's what we're going to do on this particular shot here. So I'm going to switch over. Let's go to this screen here now. And we're just going to add a simple little title effect here. So I'm going to close all of these effects out right here. And inside of Premiere Pro, you have a new titling tool, and it's with this little T icon here on the screen. So you click the T and you just find the spot here in your program monitor. And you just click there, and now it's going to give me a text area to start typing in. So I could just say, Int Pruitt production, something like that. Okay. And now the beauty of this is if I hit Control A to highlight all of the text, I can do whatever I want to those letters, because this is essentially now a text editing space on the screen. So inside of Premiere, you have the Essential Graphics panel. And you just click on that and you'll see all of these different text options here. Okay. So let me highlight this text again. And then I will change the font because I do not like this Tahoma font. My favorite font is Babus. So we're going to change that font to Babus. And if I want to make it larger, I can make it larger just by dragging these little sliders here like so. I can change the positioning of it with all of these different parameters here. So I can just drag it down on the Y like so. I want to drag it over to the left like so on the X. Just very, very simple movement. And even better, if I want to change the color of the text, I can. So I can just make it, I'm not going to do this because it'll look horrible. If I want to make it say like this yellow or something, I can do that. And there we have yellow text there. Actually, that doesn't look terribly bad, but I don't really want it that. So let's just put that back to white like so. All right, so select all of the text, change that back to white. Okay. And then you have these other options, y'all. You have this here, it says stroke. Stroke is what's going to allow you to have like a bit of an edge around your text. So right now it's set to white. I'm going to change it to black just so it'll show up a little bit better. And then it's at 1 pixel, so you can barely see it. But if I increase this to say 8 pixels, you'll see the difference like so. All right. So now when I click off of it, you'll see how that white text has a little bit more of a, it's almost got a little bit more contrast to it. See if I can overdo it. So let's change this to say 16, something like that. There we go. So it's a little bit darker. Not something I would do on every bit of text, but that just gives you an idea that you can play around with stroke when it comes to doing your different types of lettering and titles in your video. Okay, so now moving on. Let's take this and again, just make it look a little bit better in the scene. So I'm going to render this out real quick because I'm noticing that yellow line right there. And this only takes a second. Hit sequence here in the menu and say render selection, and it'll play through. And there, it pops up on the screen. And then it goes away. I think that stayed on the screen a little too long, so we can just trim it back like that. And if I want to make it look even better, let's not have it pop up. Let's have it fade into the screen. So just add another little, like a dissolve effect again. I save it into my little favorites folder over here. So I'm just going to grab one of these dissolves and just drop it onto the footage. Hit play. And now it fades in and pops out. There. So that's pretty daggum simple stuff that you can add to your footage just to make it look a little bit better and a little bit more polished. Now, I want to show you a couple different steps inside of Davinci Resolve, but first I want to take a few seconds to thank this week's sponsor. This episode of Hands On Photography is brought to you by Nareva. Complicated and costly. That has been the state of audio conferencing for larger spaces for a long time. Choosing a traditional system might entail difficult design software and selecting from a dizzying array of separate mics, speakers, DSPs, and a whole lot more tech, y'all. Good grief. Installation usually requires outside techs and is often highly invasive and expensive. It could take your room offline for days. Now, the industry was definitely primed for the same type of leap in technology that has transformed and simplified other sectors, right? Well, Nareva made that leap when they created the revolutionary microphone mist technology. With this patented technology, 1 or 2 integrated microphones and speaker bars fill a room with thousands of virtual microphones. There are no dead zones and everyone can be heard everywhere in the room. Even that person is trying to hide back there in the corner of the meeting. Meeting and class participants can simply talk and move naturally in the space and still be heard by remote participants. Thanks to continuous auto calibration, the rooms are instantly and always ready to be optimized with audio. That's really cool. No outside tech is required on this. Nareva has also simplified installation. It's about a 30-minute DIY job to get these installed yourself. That means big savings on time and cost compared to traditional systems. They simplified management too. Nareva Consoles gives IT the power to monitor, manage, and adjust their systems from anywhere. No need for IT to go from room to make sure everything is sounding good. So ask yourself if you want to go with the costly and complicated traditional system or make the leap to the simple and economical Nareva. You can learn more at nareva.com. That's NUREVA.com. And we thank Nareva for their support. Okay, we're back, and now I am inside of Davinci Resolve. Again, this is just another free video editor that is actually pretty daggum good to be free. They do have a paid version, but this free version is, it's really daggum good. So what I've done is I brought the timeline into Resolve so we can have the same type of idea and feel. And we're going to take a look at just again, having some type of titling added to the scene and having some type of transition added to the scene. Now, I did leave the audio on here, so I'm going to get rid of that audio. It's not needed there. Get rid of that audio. Let's see. So I need to take this little link thing and turn that off, and then get rid of these little crazy sounds like that. And I don't want a magnet timeline, so let's move that stuff back to where it was. There we go. There we go. Why is the magnet timeline still doing that? Stop that. Nobody saw this. Anyway, we're moving right along, powering through. Okay, so we got our audio out of the way that we don't necessarily need. And we're going to give ourselves a nice little transition going from one scene to the next. So I'm going to drag the playhead through. He's going through the scene, and then it just switches over to this jumping scene here with the photograph that we captured. Okay. This is so easy. So easy. Inside of Premiere, you had to search for an effect to do the little dissolve. And inside of Resolve, you can do pretty much the same thing. So let me take myself off of the screen here. If you look over here on the left-hand side, under the Effects tab, You just click that and it'll bring up all of your effects. And you got all of these different categories, and you have this video transitions, and you'll see that there's a bunch of different transitions listed right here. And just like you would in Premiere, you just do a bit of a drag and drop onto the footage. So if I wanted to do this cross dissolve, I'll just drag it onto the beginning of the footage there, like so. But I'm going to undo that, so I don't want to do that. This is so much easier. All right, so I'm going to take this footage and I'm going to raise it up just one track like so. And then I'm going to slide it over just a little bit to overlap the track that's on bottom. So video track 1 and video track 2 are now just slightly overlapped. But if you look at this, the first clip here, it has these little handles at the top. And you notice I could just drag it like that to the right. Okay. And I just dragged it to where it says point 20 or something like that. Okay. And I'm going to push this over a little bit more. Something like that. There we go. And then I'll do the same thing on the track at the end of, on the clip at the end of track 1. It has a little handle, and I'm just going to drag it to the left instead of dragging it to the right. Now what's happening is that is creating a transition effect where the opacity for these two layers are going to change. If you look at the end of track 1, you'll see that now this video is going to fade out versus the beginning of video track 2. The track is going to fade in, and since they're on top of each other, it should create just a nice little cross dissolve transition. So if I just go ahead and hit play, we should see a fade in and fade out that's seamless. See? Never mind, this sound effect was a little bit off, but that's okay. And so let's play it back again. Here's the cross dissolve. Good. That was so much easier. Okay. So now what about the title and things? So we can go back to this beginning spot again, somewhere right along here or what have you. And again, the titles are just another bit of effects. You go to your effects menu. Okay. And you got all of these different transitions. And then there's the title section right here on the left-hand side. And there's a whole bunch of them in here. You'll notice this one says Fusion titles. Fusion is a bit of a motion graphics piece of software built inside of Davinci Resolve. Not going to touch on that yet. That's way too advanced for most of you. We're just going to do something very, very simple. And you notice it has lower thirds listed there. And if you hover over it, it shows you just a sample view in your program monitor of what the lower third could look like. And you can just drag and drop whatever you want. So I like just plain old text here. So let me just click on text. So I got text and I dragged it over, and I'm just going to drop it on, video track 2. Like so. And it says basic title, which is horrible. We don't want it to say basic title. We need to change that. How do you do so? You just click on it and you look over here on the right hand side of the screen. At the upper right, it says metadata, mixer, and inspector. Click on inspector after you've clicked an asset inside of your timeline, and it's going to show you all of the information that's regarding that particular clip that you've selected. So in this instance, I've selected the title or text box there. So it's giving me all of the parameters that I can play with in here. So again, I can change the font to something that I like, Babus. Let's try middle, something like that. And I'm going to erase basic title, and I'm going to put in Ant Pruitt production and do that. Okay. And we'll leave it at white. We got drop shadow stuff. We can add a drop shadow. So I'm going to click that, and we'll make the drop shadow say, let's go with something in the warmer red side, something like that. Click OK. Add a little blur to it like that, whatever. Just keep playing around with all this stuff. None of that's necessary. I'm just going to move on. Sorry, I get ahead of myself. But anyway, the positioning of this is the problem. We don't want this right dead in the center of the screen. If you want to, fine. But me, I want this more on the lower third and the lower left. So we just go to the X position and the Y position and just move it around. So let's just move this down like that. Move this down like so. And we have it in the right position. So as we play it back, it should pop up on the screen. Boom. And it's still rendering out because you can see it's got a little red line there. That's why it was choppy. And then it goes away. So let's try that again. Give it a second to render out. This one renders out behind the scenes, unlike Premiere Pro does. So give it half a second, play it again, and it pops on the screen. I think that's a little too long, so I'm going to trim it back. Yep, there we go. So now let's play it. Pops on the scene, and then it should just pop away. All right. Again, I don't like that. It should be a little bit more, transitional. So just like we did with the dissolve, let's just play around with the opacity and just have it ease in and ease off with its opacity. There we go. And then it should fade away. Simple. Very, very, very simple stuff just to spruce up your video just a little bit, So you're not necessarily showing off amateur footage. Okay. Now you're stepping up into slightly above amateur. All right. So folks, that's going to do it for this week's episode. I hope this has been helpful for you. There's so much more to these video, projects, and I'm just trying to make it as simple as I can so I don't really run you off and get you just really, really intimidated with so much extra data and information. Because I tell you, things like After Effects, things like Fusion, I mean, they have so many different menus and so many different options, and it's great to get into that stuff, but I don't recommend people just jumping right into it if they don't have any idea about video editing. You really should just sort of understand the basics of the things when you're working through these projects, same way you would with photography. And again, you don't necessarily have to have Premiere Pro. You can use Davinci Resolve. You can use Vegas Pro. Davinci Resolve is about $300, or you can get their free version and work totally fine. Okay. So if you have any questions, hey, feel free to shoot an email over to hop@twit.tv. Again, questions, comment, feedback, images you'd like for me to critique on the air, just make sure you mention in the email that I have your permission to show it on the air, all that good stuff. And also don't forget about our moon photography challenge. So some of you folks have already started sending those in. Keep sending them on in, and we'll catch up on those images very, very soon. All right, that is going to do it for me this week, folks. Thank you all for the continued support. Thank you to my man, Mr. Victor, for always helping me look and sound good on these things, especially when I have wonky edits like this one. Hey, keep sharing out the show. Keep telling everybody about hands-on photography, and keep coming out and checking out this great show, folks. I really do appreciate it. All right, that's going to do it for this week. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time. So safely create and dominate. Take care.
No ads, just the content. That's what you get when you join Club Twit. You even get extras like Twit Plus, our new bonus feed just for members, and exclusive access to the Club Twit Discord community. Join now for just $7 a month and support Twit as we continue to create top-notch podcasts you expect and deserve. We're just getting started, so be one of the first to join as we build Club Twit from the ground up. You could be an early member. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit to learn more and sign up now. Thanks.